Hello, I'm Anika from Made to Sew. In this class, I wanted to talk through how to finish an invisible zipper, specifically on the inside, whether you're working with a lining or a facing. Now I have one tutorial, which I'll pop a link to here, for finishing the top edge of a facing. And that construction method is when you have attached the zipper and then you attach the facing. For this method, we're going to be focusing on inserting the zipper once the neckline has been sewn and finishing the zipper with a lining as well. This method is taken from my How to Sew a V-neck A-line dress video, which you're welcome to follow entirely if you want to learn some other techniques. For this video, I'm going to presume that you know how to insert an invisible zipper. I have a very basic beginner's tutorial for that, which again, I'll link to here. Grab your zip and let's get started.
Before we get started with finishing the top of the zipper, we need to talk through the steps that you need to follow to get to this point. For this particular construction method, you're going to want to have the neck seam sewn between your exterior material and your lining or facing. This should also be understitched, and your understitching should stop approximately 5mm or 1/4 inch away from the centre back stitching line. My seam allowance is 1 centimetre 3/8 inch, so I will stop my understitching 1.5 centimetres 5/8 inch away from the centre back edge of my material. Once the neck seam has been sewn, the invisible zipper would then be inserted. It is your choice as to whether you want to insert the invisible zipper before or after sewing the centre back seam. The top plastic stopper of the invisible zipper for this method should be positioned approximately a generous 1/8 inch, 3 to 4 millimeters below the top folded edge of the neckline. This won't necessarily be the seam between the exterior fabric and the lining or the facing, because you should have a little bit of favouring where that exterior fabric rolls ever so slightly towards the inside. Sew the invisible zipper in position on both sides of the seam, starting at that top zip stopper, the distance of 1/8 inch, 3 to 4 millimeters from the neck seam. If you have a full lining, you will want to sew the centre back seam in the lining too. Finally, I would recommend that you anchor the bottom of the zipper tape onto your seam allowances. Simply sew a bar tack or a backwards and forward stitch a few times, sewing through the zipper tape and the seam allowances on either side at the bottom of the zipper. If you're working with a facing, I would also recommend that you finish the bottom edge of the facing. Now that the zipper has been attached and the neckline seam between the garment and the lining or facing has been sewn, we can work to finish the inside edge of the zipper. Start by opening the zipper. Take the back lining or facing and pull this around so that it folds at the neckline edge, positioning what will be the right side of the lining or facing against the zipper tape and the right side of your exterior fabric. You want to align the very edge of the centre back lining material with the edge of the centre back exterior material. This might be aligned with the edge of the zipper tape, or it might not be. This depends on the width of your zipper tape and your seam allowances. Now this is the bit that makes the difference. To finish the top of the zipper here, we are going to pull the zipper tape above the top zip stopper towards the raw edge of the material until the vertical line of the zipper tape is now horizontal. It should be sitting horizontally along the neck edge. This does two things. It keeps the zipper tape out of the way whilst we're sewing, and it also reduces bulk at that neckline edge. With the zipper tape held in position, fold the lining or the facing at the neckline edge. The seam allowances along the neck edge should go towards the lining or facing. Pin in position. Then I like to carefully turn the work around to the right side so that I can check this top corner. Ideally, you want to have a clean finish to the top of the zipper. You do not want to be able to see the folded zipper tape from the inside of the garment. And the neckline seam should be finished neatly. If something doesn't look right here, it's much easier to adjust it now rather than have to unpick the work later. So it's always best to take a look and check that you're happy before you take it to the sewing machine. Once you're happy with the top of the zipper, you're now going to work down the rest of the zip, pinning the lining and the exterior fabric together, sandwiching the zipper tape in the middle. Keep pinning the lining until you get to the centre back seam of the lining. Working with the facing, stop at the bottom of the facing. Take your work to the sewing machine. You're going to want to use your standard zipper foot to be sewing approximately 5 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch, away from the zipper teeth. You can start sewing at the top of the zipper, but sometimes this can be a little bit tricky because of the bulk in this area. If your sewing machine struggles, you can start away from the top edge, sew the seam, and then return to sew this top section in the opposite direction. Alternatively, try using a tool such as a hump jumper or a bulky seam aid. You can also use layers of fabric piled up to support this. Sew down the length of the zipper. You will get to a point where you can't sew any further, and this is because you need to fasten the zipper. To do this, you want to position your needle into the fabric, raise the presser foot, fasten the zipper, and then continue sewing. You want to stop the seam either in line with or just before the centre back seam of the lining. You won't be joining up with this seam because you are sewing a smaller seam allowance. Backstitch to secure. Once you've sewn one side, it's always a good idea to check your work from both the wrong side as well as turning this around to the right side. Fold the zipper over itself, turn the work to the right side, and push out the top corner. Check that you are happy with what you've sewn. The neckline should look nice and neat. You should not be able to see the zipper tape from the inside of the garment, the lining or facing side. I usually like to fasten my zipper and to check this completely. Once I'm happy, I will then work on the second side of my zip. The most important thing here is that both sides at the top of the zip are symmetrical. So I will always prepare my second side and check it against my first by turning it to the right side. If you're happy, you can sew the second side in exactly the same manner. And here you have your finished zipper at the top of the zipper from the exterior side as well as the lining side of the garment, as well as on the inside of the garment from the lining side. You can sew a hook and eye at the top of the zipper if you want to.
Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the class and that you learned a new technique you can use in your garments. I hope to see you in the next one.